Hello everybody, welcome back to FishPoint with Joe Michels. This video will be about flipping and pitching in the jungle, as I like to call it. It's the most heavy cover one could imagine. Fishing this way has many challenges. You will see what I mean throughout this entire video. This video is made from a number of days fishing, including a tournament day of fishing. I will tie the videos together as best I can. Please enjoy. There you go, that's a nice one. I'm seeing what appears to be maybe shad over here. You can see how heavy this cover is, and you can tell I'm thrown right in the middle of it, as deep in there as I can at some times. And when you get a fish on, oh yeah, oh, he's in the tree. Get out of the tree, baby. Get out. Oh, there he comes. Come on. There he is. All right. All right. Nice fish. Oh, I got him too. Oh yeah. All right. All right. Now look at this long. This fish is long. She spawned out. All right. So, big mouth. This fish probably weighs not 3 pounds, I'll bet. She's got some spawning stuff going on. Beautiful fish. Almost a 3-pounder. This fish will gain some weight as it feeds back up. Beautiful little fish. Big fish. There you go. All right. Now, what I need to do here is I was on the other side of these trees, okay? I wasn't getting bit over there, but right here I'm getting bit, but there's grebes around here. So there's, the shad is where the grebes are where the shad and the bass are together. Sometimes you get lucky and pull up to a spot and instantly catch a fish. In this case, I pull up to a bush, I throw in there the first time, and I catch myself a pretty darn good bass. Oh, that's a good one. All right. Okay. There we go. So on this clip, I'm basically without sound, so we'll just have to talk through it. I'm pitching into these trees, and I make a pitch right tight into that tree, and sure enough, I get bit. They were very close to the tree. Of course, my line was wrapped and all this stuff, and this fish was just hanging there. But if you look at it, that fish is on pretty good and turns out to be a decent fish. The only thing you can do is just keep taut line on that fish and scoot in with a trolling motor. This turns out to be a real mess for me because I'm in the trees. My trolling motor is going to get tangled into the rod line. It's a mess, but there it is. The fish is sitting right there and he stays hung up. That's pretty cool. So I just get down on my hands and knees and I dig around and finally get the fish out. Now this is the here at Taylor weird Japanese bluegill bait. It's really a big bait. I'm throwing it because I'm trying to catch bigger fish. I've caught fish on it. I've had fish on into heavy, deep cover, and it's having a hard time getting them out. But they're biting it, and so I'm going to keep throwing it just for the fun of it. I'm trying to see if I can't just catch a much better fish. But there it is. I don't have it on there perfectly well, but it hits the water, and it's like a bluegill or some big bait fish, and it's triggering bites. So let's see if I can't actually get one in the boat with it, a nice big one. Big ass rod. Oh, right. Look at that. Okay. Had to throw that into the heaviest cover ever. Okay, got him good. Come on now. Open up. There you go. There you go. All right. Not a giant fish, but he was deep in that stuff. Look what I caught him on. I'll get that bag out and show you. He's about a pound and a halfer. He ate this big giant bait. Amazing. All right. Come on now. Oh, fuck. Get stuff off of there. This cover is so heavy I can't move my boat near the fish. So what I'm doing is I'm letting it slacken the line and I'm seeing if the fish will just swim away. There he is. All right. That's another nice one right there. Solid fish. Whoosh. Yeah, maybe not quite a 2-pounder. Post spawn. Needs to get some weight on her. Alrighty. Hey everybody, so let's take a break and let me talk to you about the gear and the setup I'm using to flip and pitch and skip these baits into this heavy cover here in Arizona. So you may not notice it, it's probably hard to tell, but I'm actually using 3 different rods here. I'm using a 711 power Flipn Rod from St. Croix. It's a Legend Tournament brand, model I should say. And I'm using a 7'6" Flippin Rod, as they call it, and it's 7'6". Again, it's heavy power with a moderate fast action. And some of the fish I catch, I'm throwing it on this Power Finesse, which is, again, a heavy rod, but it has an extra fast tip. And it's 7'3" in the length, okay? So let's just talk about each one of these. So I have 2 of these Flippin rods set up. One is the 711, and I hook up a little bit heavier baits. 1/2 ounce, 3/8 and above is certainly 1/2 ounce. The bigger baits, you see me flipping some of these bigger baits, okay? And that's exactly the rod I'm putting that on, because this rod, it's a heavy rod, so I'm gonna put heavier and bigger baits on there for flipping. And it works fantastic. What can I say? I boat fish with this rod in heavy covers. It's amazing. I'm using the St. Croix 7 is the brand reel. It's a GF. It's got 4 bearings with 1 major roller bearing. It's a great reel to put on a flipping stick that you don't use all the time, okay? You can get by with a little less expensive reel, I think, because you just don't use it. It's 7/3-1, and it has a handle. It's 90 millimeters, and initially I didn't like the smaller 90 millimeter distance. I like the 95 It's weird. Once you get used to using 95, you like sticking with that. But I had a rod, I had a reel on this rod that I couldn't take up the line. It's an 8, it was an 8 to 1, it's right here as a matter of fact, which I like it on this rod. And it's a 95 millimeter. When I'd set the hook and I'd try to bring the fish in, I just couldn't move the fish. It's weird, okay? It's weird, it's me. So, you know, it might be different for you, but I've settled in on a 7, 3 to 1 action in this particular reel. So you see me catching a bunch of fish with that. I'm glad I have it in the boat, and I'm glad I had 2 flipping sticks. Of course, the second one is a classic. It's just called the Flippin. It's 7.6. Again, heavy power with a moderate fast action. On here, I'm using a Abu Garcia Revo SS, which stands for shallow spool, because why have so much line? It helps you pitch and doing things like that. So I really like it on this rod. It is an 8 to 1, but for some reason on this particular rod, I can set the hook and I can get those fish moving. It's fantastic. And here I'm throwing a little lighter baits. You know, 3/8 in this particular video, but I can throw down to a 1/4 weight, and then you put a little plastic on the end. You can actually fling that pretty good when you pitch in it. So I really like this rod. And if I were to, what I've learned, by the way, is very interesting. I've learned that having 2 flipping sticks in the boat when the season is on, or the bite is on, is really nice to have. So, you know, I think that I would buy 2 of these, or, you know, I would buy 2 instead of this longer one, which is so much more heavy. This one weighs 6.6 ounces, just the rod, and this one weighs a little over like 5.03 ounces. So that's an ounce, 1.6 ounce difference between these 2 rods. And you do that over all day long, and it matters, okay? So keep that in mind. Both these rods I had set up with 20-pound test line, a little different line on here. This one I bought a year ago. They don't make it anymore. It's from Sunline. It's just got some coloring in it to help see better. They don't make it, so that's fine. I can see this line just fine. This is regular Sunline 20-pound test line. So that's what I hook up. And the reason I do that is in this heavy cover, I don't use braid, because braid can dig into the wood like a saw blade and get stuck or slow down. So I don't want that. So I'm using fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon works pretty good against all that wood, okay? 20-pound on both, but you know, now that I have this big 711 powerful rod, I might, in heavy cover, I might move up to 22-pound just to give me that edge if I really needed it. Okay, so those are my 2 main flipping reels. Okay, the other rod I was using was this St. Croix Legend Tournament Power Finesse. It's 7'3", and it's a heavy action with an extra fast tip. Now, the extra fast tip I love for pitching. I love pitching lighter weight baits. I love pitching Senkos on this rod. I love pitching lightweight on this rod. And then I know I have the power. And I pitch in those Senkos stuff in a very heavy cover, okay? I use weighted Senkos. But this also turns out to be a really good rod for skipping jigs. And that's what I got tied on here. And I was doing a pretty good job with my skipping, even though I'm not very skilled at it. Now the reel I'm using, again, is going to be the Revo SS, designed for pitching, 8.1 to 1 with a 95 millimeter handle. So when I throw it in there and I set the hook, I can actually get that rod moving and get the fish moving. Again, because I think this rod is a little shorter, I can certainly use this high-speed reel on this particular rod. In this setup, though, I was also using braid. Little different setup. It's a very subtle difference maybe, but because I also use this rod for skipping frogs, I have braid on there for the frog because it floats, and I just switch it out and tie on a jig, and I go. So sometimes you gotta, nothing's perfect, you can't have everything perfect, but I think, by the way, that skipping with braid is easier anyway. I'm not a master skipper, but it felt to me when I switched from the frog to this was awesome. So those are the rods I was using in this video, and the actions are what's critical. You don't have to buy these rods or anything like that, but knowing how I'm doing it is probably useful. Okay, now let's move on to the bait I was using. Here are some of the baits I'm using in this video. The fish were definitely keying off a shad, right? This was a shad bite from top to bottom. It was May. Shad spawn was kind of going on early in the morning probably. So these fish were very, very, very keyed on shad. So one of the baits I was using very successfully was the Zoom Z-Craw, okay? Nothing special there, but it's an awesome bait. I happen to be liking this color. It's the black and it's got some silver fleck in it. I think this looked great in that water. The water's a little stained, so having that black, they could see it a little bit, but yet it had a little sparkle in it, which reminds them of a shad. I caught a bunch of nice fish on this particular bait. Liked it a lot. Bought more of them, okay, because of this situation. I probably won't use them for a year, but you got to have what you got to have, right? Another bait I was using was just the swim jig. It looks like a shad here, right? It's white. It's got white skirt, totally a shad looking thing. You throw it in the water with a swim tail on it, and it sinks and it looks amazing. Caught a lot of fish on this particular bait in varying sizes and colors, but they're all basically white or shad oriented. This particular one is something I didn't use much in the video because I was using other colors and stuff, and I picked this up from the hookup tackle just for this purpose. I'm using this Nico brand. Obviously, these colors here are shad looking colors, but it's Elastec, right? So it stretches and it's tough. One of the things I was having troubles with, I'd catch a fish and the soft swim tails would just fall apart, come undone. I'd get somebody bite and I'd set the hook and I'd come back with no tail. Probably little ones biting the tail, but I think I needed something a little tougher, so I went with this. And what I noticed too, by the way, when I drop this in the water, this tail just kicks back and forth, amazing. This happens to be a 3/8 ounce jig. It's not a heavy jig with all this drag, you know, it drops kind of slow, which I think is one of the appeals, right? And that tail would just kick very nicely, so it's pretty awesome. Highly recommend that setup, by the way. Another swim tail I found after the fact is a little bit smaller, and I put on my other jigs, and this feels like tough plastic. And this is Raid, okay? Let me see here. This one is the full swing, okay? And it's a little bit smaller than these, okay? But I hook them on a jig, and when I drop these in the water, it was pretty amazing. The tail, again, just very subtle, amazing. So I really like this particular, swim bait that I'm going to put on the back of my jigs in the future. This happened to have a color I matched with the skirt. You know, in the video you might see it. I think I lost it eventually, so I only had one, but nonetheless, I think this is a great combination here. Then the last thing I was thrown, by the way, was something very unique, and I had a couple bites, hoping to get a big bite, but it's this Raid Hira Taylor, okay? And here's one out of the package. This is a big bluegill profile bait. Again, I wasn't necessarily fishing bluegill pattern, so I tied on this one that kind of looks like a shad, right? So what's interesting about this is when you throw it in the water, I think I was throwing it with like a 1/2 ounce weight to get it down. This thing behaves different. This profile is really unique and it looks really interesting. I did catch some fish on it. I didn't catch anything giant. That was my goal, was to catch a really big one. I didn't get that, but I think this bait's going to be fantastic. And when they get in that heavy cover in the fall, let's say here in Arizona, and they're on that bluegill bite, I think this is going to be very, very interesting bait. This bait has a downside though. Like one of the things, this bait looks like it's brand new, but I've used it, and the nose up here is split, okay? Very soft plastic. It has to be soft because you got to get a hook in there, and that hook's got to come through it. I put a 6/0 hook in here, and it seemed to be okay. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe a 7/0 would be better. I don't know if you can go to 8/0 maybe. If you have them, I would try the bigger hook just to be safer. But one of the things I'm going to do though, because of this splitting up here, is I'm just going to heat it up and let it weld itself back together. Because this bait is perfectly fine. It's just that it's hard to hook up anymore. So keep that in mind if you want to try these. This is 4.7. This is the biggest one they make. They make some smaller ones that'll be a little bit more accessible to everybody. So, something to look at. The fish hasn't seen this particular bait yet necessarily here in Arizona. So I always like thinking about that and giving it a shot. So these are the baits. There's one more thing I want to discuss, and I'm going to get a rod here. I think it's important to talk about this. If you watch the video very closely, and you should, because you should learn by watching, especially what happens when I'm doing just before I catch a fish, okay? Get that off of there. Okay, what I'm doing, I'll take it and I'll pitch it out there, right? And I'll click the bail. Okay, let me do this a little differently. So when I'm doing a pitch, I pitch it out there, and it swings, it hits the water, and what I do, the bail is still open, I actually lift my rod tip up. As I'm doing this, I'm lifting my rod tip up really high because I want some slack. I want some extra line. So as soon as that bait hits the water, I click the bail, click, let me do that, I'll click the bail, and then I'll just follow it down. It'll just start sinking, okay? And I'm watching the line. And then you'll see me click the bail and I'll just lift up on it. And I'll do that, okay? And then I'll drop it some more. Now, it's amazing that you do this because I'm sitting in 7-8 foot of water, so you want to do that. You want to keep that bait going down. And I do it all the time because sometimes you've watched a video, I throw it in there, they eat it right away. They're sitting up high underneath the limit. Sometimes they're down a ways, and so you got to let it sink down there. What I'm doing is I'm watching the line. Okay, most of the time in this video, I never saw a tick. One time I felt the fish hit it. One time. The other times, all I noticed was the line stopped sinking, like bait stopped sinking. Okay, the bait and the line stopped moving. Okay, and then what I would do is I'd stop and I'd just lift up a little bit. And if that bait felt anything heavier than this bait, or this one with a weight on it, it was a fish every time. I'd set the hook, and sure enough, there'd be a fish on. That was it. No bite. The line would stop. I'd lift up a little bit to feel, and then I would set the hook. Because let me explain something. When these baits drop, and they may stop on a limb, right? Okay, but when you lift up on it with the line, it'll just come up. It'll feel like, oh, that's that 3/8 ounce bait. That's what it's going to feel like. If it drops and a fish grabs it and it stops it, and I go to lift up, whatever that bait feels like, that's a bite. That's all you get. 90% of the time, that's all you get. So keep that in mind. Watch it in the video. You see me doing it a couple times. All I do is lift up and I go, oh, there's one on, and I'd set the hook. So hope you enjoyed that. A little bit of extra tip there. Thank you for watching my videos. I appreciate it. I'm enjoying doing this. I hope you like them. I hope I'm doing some stuff different that makes them entertaining. I know I can drone on, but I love talking about this stuff, so that's what it's about. If you don't like it, please skip, but please keep watching. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave a comment. Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. I want to talk to my viewers, so please leave a comment. I'm talking to people all over the country about bass cat boats and rods and all kinds of stuff, but I don't hear much from Arizona anglers. So, let me hear it from you. I'd love to know more about what you're up to, and I'd love to give you any information I can. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day. Now I've tied on a white arky jig with a beaver, and I'm skipping it. I'm going to try to skip it into this tree, and I make a really amazing skip, and right away the fish hits it. It's pretty fun. Okay. All right. Nice one.